What's up, everyone? I am back with yet another video for you guys. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is the Crimson Carver. I am a Warframe content creator. I am also a variety streamer over on Twitch. And today, we're going to be jumping into the Warframe Frost. Now, this is meant to be a beginner-friendly guide, right? So this is pretty much going to cover all the basics that you need to know about Frost, ranging from where to get him, how to get him, his stats, the difference between Frost and Frost Prime, his abilities, his augments, and then at the very end we're going to wrap it up with some gameplay. So yeah, sit back, enjoy the show, and I hope you guys learn something new. So, you've been looking at Frost, but you want to know a little more about him before you decide to commit, right? Before you decide to spend that platinum or to farm him out. Alrighty, well, first off, he has 270 health, 455 shield, and 315 armor with 100 energy, with a base sprint speed of 0.95, right? Now, if you want to buy him, you can purchase him from the market for 375 plat. Or if you'd rather farm him out, you can get his main blueprint from the marketplace for 25,000 credits, and his other components, right, they can be obtained by killing Captain Vor and Lieutenant Lechkrill on Ceres on the mission Extra. So, yeah. If you're looking to get him, that's how you can get him. Okay, but why should I bother go farming for Frost when Frost Prime is out? What's the difference between the two? Well, the difference between Frost and Frost Prime is this. There's really not much difference, except for the simple fact that Frost Prime has more shield than regular Frost. So, if you feel like going after Frost Prime, be my guest. There's no real noticeable difference between the two. So yeah, that's the only real difference between them. Now it's important to note that 3/4 of the frames that are out do have their own prime variations, right? Up to, I believe, Ureli. Ureli has her own prime as well. There are various ones that don't have their primes out at the moment, but yeah. So if you wanted to get Frost Prime over Frost, it's more than understandable considering the slight difference. Right, so you've built Frost, well, Frost Prime, depending on your preference, and you want to know how his abilities work. Don't worry, I got you, right? So, first off, his passive. Cold status effects from Frost abilities last 100% longer. Basically, this means every time you freeze somebody with an ability from Frost, it lasts a lot longer. He also gains armor for each enemy affected by cold within affinity range, right? So every enemy that is frozen, you gain additional armor. Well, additional 50 armor per enemy that is frozen, right? So, you freeze an enemy, boom, extra armor. Cool. Freeze. I mean, it's self-explanatory. You basically throw a snowball at someone's face and affect them with cold. I don't know what to tell you. It has a drain of 25 energy, damage of 350 cold damage, area damage of 150 cold, and freeze duration of 15 seconds with a radius of 5 meters. Now, before we start getting into the abilities properly, right, there's one thing that I would like to point out, right, which is this. If ever you're having trouble getting your ability mods, whether it's strength, range, duration, efficiency, whatever, right? Efficiency less so because you get that pretty early on, but like for the other three, if ever you're having issues, right, go to Cetus, look for the bounties that have the Augur mods, right? Now, the ones you're looking for are Augur Reach, Augur Message, and Augur Secrets. Okay, what they do? Well, Augur Message increases your ability duration, Augur Secrets increases your ability strength, and Augur Reach will increase your ability range, right? So it's honestly a good idea to pick up these three, in my honest opinion, because not only does each of them cover your ability bases, their set bonus gives you extra energy spent is converted to shields, which is really nice. But with that being said, let's jump into his first ability, right? As I said, you basically throw a snowball and you freeze an enemy, right? Now, it does have a drain, which means we can put Streamline on. Right? So if we want to reduce that drain, the initial drain rather, right? Boom, Streamline. That's going to reduce the cost of the ability, right? Okay, but what if we want the cold to do more damage for whatever reason? Yeah, just chuck on Augur Secrets. It's going to boost your ability strength, and it's going to boost the damage and the area damage, right? Slap on more duration. That's going to increase the freeze duration, right? So we put this on, and then boom, look. That freeze duration just went up, just because we added a bit of duration. Now, if you want your cold explosion to be, wider, right? You can slap on a little bit of range, and watch what happens. See? That radius now gets increased. And that's basically how that works and how how this ability is affected by each of its modifiers. By that, I mean duration, efficiency, range, strength. Right? Okay, on to the next ability. Ice Wave. Essentially, you slam your fist into the ground and you create a wave of ice that travels forward. It has a length, width, it has a freeze duration as well as its own angle. The angle cannot be modified, so keep that in mind. It is forever going to be 45 degrees straight ahead, right? It does have damage. It does cold damage, 700 cold damage. It has a freeze duration of 10 seconds. Its width is 3 meters, and its length is about 20 meters, right? So, 3 meters wide and 20 meters long. So, just like the first ability, we can put efficiency on to reduce the initial cost of the ability, right? Boom. If you wanted to do more damage, put on strength. That's going to increase the initial damage of the ability. If you want the freeze to last longer, you're going to want to put on duration, right? That'll cause it to last longer. Now, if you wanted to go further, and I think range also affects the width of it as well. I'm not entirely sure about that one, but we'll see. Yes, it does. So, more range means it's wider. More range also means it's longer, and apparently range also increases the angle. How about that? So yeah, if you want this to be like more of a crowd control thing, what you can do is you can slap on more range and more duration, and then boom, more enemies affected, more freeze, more armor. It's kind of cool. Alright, on to the next ability. Snow Globe, sorry. Well, it's kind of what it sounds like. You basically make a snow globe. Yeah. It's got a cost of 50 energy. It's got a radius of 5 meters, which can be altered with range. It's got cold status per second, which is like 0.33. So every 3 seconds, you're going to have about... Well, I'd say every 4 seconds, sorry. You'd have a guaranteed cold proc. The freeze duration lasts for about 10 seconds. It has a health of 5,000. It has it has invulnerability time, actually, which is nice, which is about 4 seconds. And it does about 150 cold damage to any enemy that's like kind of pushed out from it, right? So You basically deploy it in your enemies, and then what happens is, if the enemies walk too close when you deploy it, it'll push them back, and it'll hit them with that, and then the explosion will also deal damage, right? You can throw a snow globe at it, and it'll explode. So you can throw a snowball at it, or freeze. You can cast freeze, and it'll make the snow globe explode, dealing area damage. More strength means more area damage and more damage in total. So yeah, you get... Oh, and it also means more health. It also means more health. So yeah. More range is going to increase the radius of the bubble, which is kind of cool. So if you want a bigger bubble, add more range. If you want to play like defensive, just, yeah, do that. If you want the cold procs to last longer, you could slap on duration. That works quite nicely. Unfortunately, you cannot affect the freeze. So you cannot affect the cold stat per second. So keep that in mind. Also, that invulnerability time per second is fixed. So keep that in mind. You cannot affect it with duration, no matter how much you may want to. With that out of the way, let's move on to the last ability. Avalanche. So, essentially, Frost will raise his hand up in the ground, clench his fist, freeze enemies, and then he'll kind of swipe his hand forwards, which will then send out a wave of ice, dealing damage and reducing armor. Right? It's got a drain of 100 energy. It's a pretty hefty cost, to be honest. Does 1500 cold damage, right? It has a 15-meter radius. It has a freeze duration of 8 seconds. It has 60% base armor reduction. And it has an explosion radius of 4.5 meters, with the explosion damage being 400 cold damage, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, essentially you freeze enemies, hit them with a wave of ice, and they either die or they get armor stripped. It's kind of cool. Now, if you want that armor strip to be stronger, I would recommend putting on strength. That's going to increase it. As you can see, it's also going to increase the damage, and it's going to increase the explosion damage too. So, yeah, keep that in mind. If you want that explosion damage, and if you want the ability range, or the ability to hit more enemies, you're going to want to put on range, right? Range basically makes it so you have a higher explosion radius, and you can freeze more enemies because you have an expanded radius. Now, if you want that freeze duration to last longer, duration mods, 100%. Right, so it's going to boost it up by a bit. And if you feel like that cost is a bit hefty, you can always slap on some efficiency mods, right? Streamline, for example. And boom, that's the cost reduced. And that pretty much covers all of Frost's abilities. If you have any questions about Frost, don't be afraid to leave a comment. Okay, so you've got a Frost build together and you're happy with it, right? But you want to add that extra bit of flair, something to make it truly unique. Well, that's where Augments come in, right? And Frost has about 5 different Augments. Each of them affect his abilities in a different way, so keep that in mind. The first one that we're going to be going over is an Augment called Freeze Force, right? Basically, how it works is, whenever you hold the ability freeze, it's going to give you extra cold damage for 40 seconds, and every ally that's within 15 meters of you is also going to gain that extra cold damage, which is kind of nice. Right, now it's affected by strength and duration, right? As well as range, I believe. So you can put on strength to essentially increase the bonus. you can put on range so as people further away can benefit from it. And you can put on duration to make the ability last longer. Now the next augment, the next augment he has is for his Ice Wave, right? Now this one is called Ice Wave Impedance. This is a conclave augment, which basically means it is a PvP augment, so keep that in mind. Essentially, instead of Ice Wave doing the whole little, wave of ice spikes in front of you for whatever, right? Instead, what it does is that it turns it into a cold trail, right? So you cast this, it turns into a trail of cold that will affect enemies with cold every second, right? Now, this is affected by duration mods, so if you want the trail to last longer, you put on more duration. Like so. See? That'll increase the duration of Ice Wave Impedance. Now, the next one we're going to be looking at is Chilling Snow Globe. Or Chilling Globe, rather. So Chilling Globe is really cool. It's been used a lot for very defensive-based missions, right? So, essentially, you cast Snow Globe, right? And every enemy that walks in your bubble has a chance to become frozen solid for 10 seconds, right? So, that being said, we should be able to... Okay, so yeah, they are frozen solid for 10 seconds with a fixed 50% chance to become frozen. So keep that in mind. Next off, what we're going to be looking at is Icy Avalanche. Now, Icy Avalanche, in my honest opinion, right, this should be your go-to mod for Frost, okay? It is a phenomenal mod with the way that it works, right? And as you can probably tell, it's an augment for the Avalanche ability, right? Essentially, every enemy that you freeze with Avalanche will grant you 60 Overguard with a cap of 15,000. Now, and your Overguard increases by 20% of your max armor, right? So, you have more armor, the more Overguard you gain from it, right? Which is really fucking cool. Now, this is actually affected by strength. This is solely affected by strength. It is really cool, though. See? You gain increased Overguard with strength, increased Overguard cap, and increased armor to Overguard conversion. Now, there is one more augment that I'd like to point out. Now, this is for... I feel like it's a passive, personally, with the way that it works. It's called Biting Frost, right? Now, the way that this works is for every... whenever you're fighting against enemies that are frozen, whether it's from your abilities or from your guns or whatever, right? You will instantly gain 200% crit chance and crit damage against said frozen enemies. Now, unfortunately, you cannot modify this. It is fixed at 200%. So, yeah. Keep that in mind. And that about does it for all of Frost augments. Once again, if you have any questions, let me know, drop a comment, and yeah. That should pretty much cover all of his augments.
These are worthy foes. underestimate them at your peril.
The Orican Neural Sentry is attempting to purge you from this place. Stand by for life support. scan you. Sentient fighters won't be far behind. They know you're here. Prepare for sentient fighters. The longer you hold out, the deeper I can search. Vet, if you need to leave, extraction is ready. Hiding Lila in the void risks the unfathomable. I fear we are seeing the consequences of that risk now. Destroy these void-stained enemies. Tenno, if you have a necromech, this would be an excellent place to deploy it.
They fought well.
Lost in crowd.